Yeah.
Let's snag it. It's all right.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
So,
Excellent.
so now we're setting the dependencies, which is basically the order of which the dump blocks can be filled. Now, a dependency file is actually created here, which
Right.
is like it's like a scheduling file, but it
Yeah.
relates to an order. So, I'll talk you through this. Mining blocks, right?
Yep.
If you, for example, had a dump that actually had mining blocks like near it, you can set it so the dumping blocks can only be dumped once the mining blocks have been taken away.
Right.
It's not that important for this one because the
Yeah.
dump doesn't cover the mine.
Yeah.
So we need to select, but you can select the mining
where
blocks
you
anyway.
You could use that also to do it dump.
Yes, you can. Yeah. So if you, but you might as well select the mining blocks anyway. Just set it up. So these are
Right.
going to
Okay.
be the task solids.
Yep.
These are our scheduling mining blocks.
Mhm.
ID attribute. Just IDs. Fine. Yeah. These optional ones, don't bother with them. You don't need them right now. Sequencing method basic, that's fine, but you need to create a dependency file.
Right.
So I would just call it DEP waste rock dump basically. Yeah. And then so you got manual, which we're not going to use, but you can do rules. Yeah. So if you go, put another one in there. Yeah. So the dump filter. There isn't a dump filter in this case because we've only got one dump. Mining filter, there's no mining filter. The rule, well, there's different ones you can do. You can use angle of repose if you want a dump, for example, to have a constant sort of advancing faces, or you can use vertical overlap. I would use vertical overlap for now. And then distance, what this is saying is, okay, if you've got a block, how much do you want to expand the block and then look up to see if there's an overlap, right? So for example, if you set this distance at like 150 meters, that's going to take each of the blocks, expand them by 150 meters, and then see if anything is above it. And if anything's above it, then it can't go until this one has been filled, okay? So it's basically sort of giving like an offset distance.
Yeah. Okay.
Percent overlap. Just put it at 5%. Now, predecessor filter and successor filter, you don't need these. These are if you were basically saying, well, this block has to go before this one, but we don't have any of those fixed parts. So, if you click export to file, what that's going to do is that's going to create a dependency file. Then if you click attributes from dependencies, include sequence generate, if you click generate, what it's going to do is going to put a sequence number on the dump blocks in the graphics, so then you can visualize the order that they're being filled. The following attributes are added to the dump blocks sequence. Great. So now if we look at the dump blocks only, so if you go to layer control and isolate the dump blocks. Right, and then pull this over here somewhere. Put the interactive filter on the blocks.
Yep.
See if we get the hang of it now. And then there's actually a sequence number now as an attribute. Which is a sequence. Okay. Then if you order the sequence and then click 1, see that has to be built, you hold down control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's telling us that these are the order that the blocks have to go in. If you, for example, if that stops the top bench from being dumped before the bottom bench, basically, right?
Yep.
And that's as simple as it has to be. So if you click close now. Now, what we've done, just to recap, is we've connected all the mining blocks to the haul ramps, and we've connected all the dump blocks to the haul ramps. For the waste dump, for now, we'll just focus on the waste. So now what we can do is actually set up a haulage simulation. We're going to treat everything as waste for now. So there's one bit which we're missing, which I can never remember exactly when you have to do it, but it will become apparent. What we're going to do now is we're going to run a haulage scenario. So this scenario is where we set up what sort of trucks we want to do it on. So if we do cat 777s, this is going to create a scenario specifically for cat 777s. Now, annoyingly, this is a bug, okay, is that there's actually an advanced setting, but it's not available to be turned on here. I don't know why. It's just a bug they've messed up on. So we'll set it up on the basic setting first. Basically, under layers and attributes, it's asking us, right, what are the mining blocks? So these are going to be the task solids. Now, material or resource type attribute. At the moment, we don't have a material attribute for the mining blocks. We also do not have a material attribute for the dumping blocks, right? Now this is important because the material that you are scheduling to is related to its destination. So for example, the destination for attribute for the dumps will be waste. For the mill, it would be ore. But you can do other things, like for example, if you had a waste that you were taking to the tailings facility, the tailings facility solids would have the material waste underscore TSF. That allows you to report the cycle times differently to the waste that's going. But if you had two waste dumps, you could equally have waste dump A, waste dump B, right? So what you need to do here, now because we're doing it very simply, under task solids, right? We can just add an attribute onto the task solids, which we can call material, right? It doesn't have to be called that, but string value of 0 to start with. And what we're going to call this is, because each of the blocks have got waste and ore in them, we're not going to we don't differentiate between the material types in the mining blocks. We only differentiate between them at their destination. So they are all regarded as production blocks, okay? So the material we're calling is production. Now, for the waste dumps, the attribute we're going to say is also called material. Default value of 0, but this time we're going to call it waste. Right? So now we probably can't. Probably have to come in here again because it's. Material, right? Release dump block with associated mining block. That is something we don't care about at this point, right? That's if you're doing strip mining. Haul roads, right? Haul roads layer is this combined layer here. ID attribute, we already did that before. Mining block connectors layer is the mining slot connectors. Dump block connection layer is dump slot connectors. files. Where are we getting the information from? We are getting the information from Deswick scheduler file. And the file name was training, right?
Yep.
Start and finish. That's fine. Ignore filter, we're not ignoring anything, we're going to do all of it. Reporting directory, leave blank to put it in the current directory, that's fine. Right. Dumps. Dump dependencies. Dependency file. And where did that get put? There it is. Use field on dump blocks for release dates. Now, for example, if you know that one dump can only be accessed after a certain date, you can actually flag that as a filter, and then you can, for example, add a field in here called like dump date, and then you can say use this dump date after this release, but we don't need to do that. Haul roads. This is if you're doing haul roads that change over time. Now, I've never managed to get the dynamic haul roads to work particularly well, but what you can do is have you can have the same way you can turn a dump on and off, you can turn haul roads on and off. So if, for example, you've got a bridge that is going to be built at a certain time, but it's only available in 2020, then you can turn that haul road on in 2020 and turn the others off in 2020. But anyway, we don't worry about that too much. Destination mapping. If you load up destination mapping, at the moment it's blank, right? It's asking you what are the mining blocks and what are your dumping blocks. If you click refresh, it looks back and says, right, our mining blocks we have is production, right? Now the location basically is the waste dump, because that's the only location we've got. And it asks you, how do you want to treat that material? Now there's a couple of different ones available, but effectively you only actually want two. You only need to have two. It's annoying. The words that they've got are really rubbish, right? But basically, if you have haul, okay, it will take the volume of the mining blocks into account when they're being dumped. So it will actually fill up the dump. Now when we do the hauling to the ore, there is no dump that gets filled up. It's just a solid that because when you do the ore scheduling, you need to create like a little solid and connect all the mining blocks to that solid. But it's just an arbitrary solid, doesn't mean anything. So actually you're going to select for the ore if we have ore, haul infinite. It's like it can just haul any volume it wants to it. It doesn't fill up. But as we're doing waste, we're going to have it on haul, right? Now material mappings. Oh, sorry. What you do here is, in order to put these are the available production sources. These are the available dumping destinations. If you click this, it then adds one to the list, okay? So we're saying from production, basically from the pit, to the waste, volume field. Now, if we were differentiating between ore and waste, in the scheduler itself, you need the different volume fields. Here we've got volume high grade, volume low grade, volume subgrade. You could create another one which was just volume mill feed, right? Which was a combination of the high grade and the low grade. And volume waste dump, or volume waste, which would be inferred plus the waste. And then you have another one, volume subgrade. Now in this case, because we're not going to bother with the ore, we're going to just treat everything as waste, okay? It's basically volume, okay? And it's the same with the densities, right? If you were doing different ore and waste quantities, you'd need densities for each of them. So you actually have to calculate those densities in the scheduler file, and then they become available here. But because we're treating all of them as waste, we're just going to say the density field, right? Now resource, we haven't assigned any particular resources here. Because we're not doing.
Does it get those from the The
Yeah,
scheduler file?
I don't know. Is the answer. I think possibly. I've never used it before. I presume so. Now it's asking us for truck type. Now, one thing to note is, all right, it's got all these truck types built in, but some of them are wrong.
Right.
So what you need to do is, and what I always recommend is, if you go to here, this is the directory which holds the standard truck files. What you should do is copy it, make a copy of the one that you're interested in, paste it in here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then go to, make sure you've selected it. Okay. Swell factor to truck, 30%.
Mm-hmm.
Swell factor to dump, same 30%. Load and spot time. You can set these to whatever you want. We actually will report the travel times and the cycle times, so we'll know how long it's driving, not including the spot and load. So we can leave those arbitrary. Cycle time adjustment factor. This is if you want to increase the cycle time for any particular reason in the estimate, and that might be because you know that you haven't adjusted all of the in-pit hauls or something, and you want to add like 10% or something
Maybe
like
a wet
that.
season or something like that.
That is best adjusted in Excel later,
Right.
because you want to be able to. Well, this doesn't have variable time.
Mm.
But if you're doing under destination mapping here, if you want to cycle time adjustment factor, in some cases to add a factor, for example, 15% would be 1.15. The resultant cycle time will be multiplied by the value here. So if you want to increase it by 10%, you do 1.1 or something in there, right?
Yeah.
Rolling resistance. Standard, we normally use 3%. That's relatively good roads. And if you had a particular destination, for example, if this was waste rock dump, and you had another one, waste rock tailings facility, you can set a priority. For example, if you wanted to build a tailings facility before you wanted to build a waste dump, you set priority values of 1 against the tailings and 2 against the waste dump, and that forces it to build the tailings first. In this case, we're not fussed. Right, and then under processing parameters, it asks you what do you want to actually do. For example, you can minimize. The two we normally use is minimize distance or minimize cycle time. Minimize distance normally runs faster than minimize cycle time, so we run on minimize distance first, and then and then when you know that it's all working correctly, run it on minimize cycle time. So this is all fine now. Now, in theory, we can just run this, right? But first thing to do is validate. This checks that everything's connected. It tells us no logical validation errors are detected. Click OK. Now, before we process, I just want to show you. You know when I was talking about that the truck files were wrong?
Yep.
If you go edit truck config file, you can go to the truck configuration file. And then it just takes a minute to load. Here you go, and this has, for example, like the rim pool data all in it, and the retard data is all included. One thing to check is these things like maximum downhill speed unloaded. What might actually be the case is that the guys on site might actually have a practical speed limit that they apply. So that might actually be 30 miles, kilometers an hour. Maximum speeds as well. The maximum speed around the site, probably isn't 65 kilometers an hour. You might set that to like 45 kilometers an hour. Also here, the bodies that you're selecting. This is a standard one, gateless coal body. That's probably not what we want. What we probably want is the dual slope, or the X body. If you can see the weight, you can see the cubic meters here. So this one here, the X body class holds 60.9 cubic meters.
Right.
So we take that. That tells us what the the maximum payload weight can be, or that's 105. This one's 107. This one's 114. I actually think that some of these might even be incorrect. You've got the dual slope here. So we'll leave it based on the dual slope for now. Default swell factor. So it asks you, do you want to limit it on the BCM capacity or the LCM capacity? So I normally go LCM capacity, and then I make that 1.3, right? So that's basically, it can take 57 LCMs, right? Loose cubic meters.
Yeah.
It also, you can set the different
So and then it applies the swell factor first, and then matches that to that LCM.
Exactly, yeah. Now at the end of the day, what we're only really interested in here is actually the cycle times. This can calculate the number of trucks that you want, but really we're only interested in the cycle time.
Yeah, and then you do that.
And then you do the rest in Excel.
Yeah, okay.
So we click OK for now. And then back into the scenario, then what we can do is we just go process. And then it's going to go away, hopefully without any errors. There we go, that ran pretty quick. Okay. Now that we've run it, under reporting, you see here you've got a scenario that you can select, which is Cat 777. If you click View Animation, it goes away and loads all the layers. Sometimes you have to. Right. And then it basically shows you by period where the blocks are coming from, what route they're taking, and shows you in red what's actively being filled. So you can see here, this is the waste dump being filled and the mine.
Cool.
There you go. And then save. In the
So the actual waste
the
rock dump design.
Yeah.
Was the exact volume that you needed, or is it was it actually not correlated?
No, it's I designed it almost to have exactly the right volume. Actually, because we've taken the ore, everything there.
Yeah.
In my one, I think it finishes about here.
Yeah,
and there's a little bit more that comes in. Plus, it depends on what swell factor you use.
Yeah, sure.
I think I designed it with a 40% swell instead of 30% or something like that. So anyway, yeah, you see that it's just a coincidence that it nearly lines up. Yeah. And so then what you've got is you've got the Excel spreadsheet in here, which is ready to then be dumped into the Life of Mine Plan spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the format of that?
So if we go into the Life of Mine Plan one, what we end up with is we've got this here, haulage CSV. Now this has been set up by Gab a while ago, so you see that all of these lookups already exist. So don't select all of that and delete, because otherwise it will delete some of the lookups, I believe. What you want to do is you want to come in here, Control Shift down, take out all of that, delete all of that, then under here, open up the Excel spreadsheet, again, copy from this row down.
No, okay.
And then place into here. Now, all the lookups are set up. So under schedule quarterly, right at the bottom. In fact, it's under actually schedule and schedule quarterly.
Right.
If we go to schedule, it's the first one that does the lookups. Right at the bottom, you've got this haulage area set up. Now, what these are doing is these are looking up all the information from the sheet we've just pasted in. The important thing that it's looking up, let me see here, it's actually updated, is it's looking up this here as the destination material. Now, because we've only actually got waste, it's only doing waste, but if you look, it's 103 million tonnes. That is the total tonnage, right? So this is actually working. This is showing us on a monthly basis how much is being hauled, and it shows you the in-situ volume, the hauled volume, what the swell factors were, what the tonnes are, load and spot, the travel time, which does not include the load and spot time, cycle time, which does include the load and spot time, one-way distance, two-way distance, average speed, 17 kilometres an hour. That looks reasonable to me. It gives you the fuel burn, but we don't actually use that. We could use it, but we don't. And then it gives you the engine hours and the productivity. These engine hours are just estimated based on a basic 60% effective utilisation and 90% 90-tonne payload. So you can sort of, it just at least gives you a rough estimate, right? And then under charts schedule quarterly, you've got the same information, but it's just summarised quarterly. So then you can actually look down here. There's a chart. It should show you. Here you go.
Charles,
Is it?
Oh yeah, we've got a lot of periods.
Anyway, I don't know why it's showing all these, but anyway. But yeah, you can see here that basically your travel time starts at like 10 minutes and goes up to like 35 minutes, which is what you would expect. And then you've got it done on an annual basis as well, and you can have a look at it on an annual basis. I don't know why these are all. Should be. Shouldn't show all that because it's meant to be hidden.
Okay, so it was a haulage CSV that you pasted it into, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's pasted into the haulage CSV here. Yeah, so that's it basically. To cut a long story short, that then gives you all the cycle times and everything that you then go off and use in the cost modelling. The only thing now that we haven't done is the ore. But what you would do you want to do that, or is that good enough, do you think, what I've shown you? Because the only difference is you would put in this combined thing here, you have another copy of all of these, which got a different ID now.
ID, yeah.
The ID is not the ID is not stage 1 waste rock dump, it would be stage 1 crusher.
Yeah, the destination would be different.
And then the destination would be, you could call it mill or something.
Yeah.
And then the way that you actually do the way that you actually do the dump solid for the mill, okay, is normally, you see here you had waste, see we put blocks here?
Yep.
What I would actually do is, you can create another, just create a new layer underneath nothing. Anyway, what I would do is add a layer called dumping solids, right? And then if you go draw solid objects, like a cone or something, right? Then if you come over here and just say the crusher is like here, I think it is about there. Base radius 10 meters, top radius 5 meters, height 10, number of things 10, right? So here it's just, we create a little cone. And what you do is you make you make a copy of the haul roads, they go to the base, near the base of the cone. You need to create dump connectors for that solid in the same way as you did it for the waste dump.
And then you would do the whole infinite.
The whole infinite to it, yeah. But then because you've created this new solid, really all of the dump solids need to be on the same layer. So
alright. Okay, so that one needs to move to.
So you need to basically put all of you would need to put all of these waste dump blocks onto this dumping solids layer. Right. And then what you need to do is you need to give it a dump filter. You need to create dump filters because obviously you don't want to connect the waste dump roads to the waste dumps. So you could create a new filter in this create filter business where the dump solids would be waste rock dump, all the waste solids would be mill, and you use that to then also set up the scenario for the materials. You said the ore will go to the dump location, which is called ore rather than waste dump.
Right. And how would you deal with multiple truck types?
So what you can do is when you run the scenario, if you knew that one material type was going to be hauled by one truck and another, like ore was mined by one truck type, right? On the destination mapping, you could, for example, if this was waste, you could select 777s. If you had ore, you could select a different truck. Alternatively, if you wanted to do comparison between different truck types, you could do one haulage analysis for Cat 777s. You'd have one Excel spreadsheet with the results. You could then have run another scenario with a different truck type, and then have another set of Excel. You'd have to have two life of mine plan spreadsheets.
Yeah.
So that's what you do.
Yeah. Okay.
And then what you've ended up with is this animation, and then you can export this animation.
And by the way, in your cost modeling, when you're using your different truck types there, do you also have different cycle times for different truck types? Or
Well, so for the Belaz, for example, Deswick doesn't have Belaz built into it, so I had to add, Alexi actually added Belaz into the truck configuration. But then when I ran it, it didn't work, and it was because the braking capacity of the truck, it was just messing up. It just fell over. I had to increase the braking capacity a little bit, and then it worked. It was just like, for example, in here, in the truck file, you see here you've got maximum braking reliance on traction, 70%. maximum use of retarder force. This was the problem. It was 70%. It wasn't working. I made it like 72%, and it worked.
Right. I think that's why.
So no, I don't know why, but then what I did is I ran it for the Belaz, and actually the Belaz was faster than the Cap 777. But then anecdotally from Alexei, he told me that's not possible. So I ended up just using the same cycle time.
Right. Yeah.
I just said, well, you know, it's close enough.
Yeah.
I mean, within 10%, it's going to be accurate, and you know, we're accurate enough anyway.
Yeah, I was just thinking of maybe other projects where you might have specific ore trucks which are much smaller, if you have a large strip ratio or something. Or
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can use different trucks.
More selectivity needed.
You've just got to be sure that you're using the right room pull curves and everything.
Yeah.
And that's it, really.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether the actual cost model and then catered for the multiple.
If you get Colleen to help you,
right,
you can set up different cycle times for different trucks, but it's a bit fiddly. Maybe in her new version, she's doing a new version of the whole model. She might set that up to be available. But Colleen added it in for me. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Is that cool?
Yeah.